Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, welcome everybody, councillors, and Sam and Mr. Houston. This is the Kingsthorpe Parish Council meeting for the 17th of March 2021. You can find details of the agenda on the Kingsthorpe Parish Council website. There are a few things to lay out before we start properly. This meeting is open to the public, which means anyone who's got the Zoom council details can join the meeting. If you are joining the meeting, if you could just remain on mute until you're asked to speak. If you speak up on any item when you're not allowed to, you will be asked to mute yourself. If you're abusive or insulting, we will remove you from the meeting. There is a chat function which you can use through Zoom. So if you want to make your feelings known on any item we're discussing, please use that rather than interrupt anybody while they're speaking. With that all said, we'll move on to the first item of the agenda, which is apologies. So we've had apologies from Councillor Chowdhury, and also Councillor Nilesh Parekh has said he is going to be late. Are there any declarations of interest? Item number.
Sorry, that we've also had apologies from Mr. Sean Brady and Rachel Hetherington, who can't join us this evening.
Okay, yeah, thank you for reminding me about that. So item 2, declarations of interest. I have one which relates to item 8, planning matters, that I am currently on Northampton Borough Council Planning Committee. So I will be abstaining from any votes that may come up. So move on to item 3, which is to approve the meetings of the meeting held on the 24th of February 2021. Is everybody happy with the minutes as they have been presented?
Yes, Chair.
Okay, I will sign that off then, and I'll make sure that Kate, the clerk, gets a copy of them. So item number 4 is the public session. So members of the public can address the council, and there is 15 minutes allotted for this item, and each member of the public will have 3 minutes to make representations or ask questions. If you do ask a question, we can give an immediate answer, or we can agree to come back to you if we don't know the answer. So the only member of the public we have at the moment is Mr. Houston. Would you like to make any statements or ask any questions? Okay, thank you very much. So moving on to item number 5, which is the library provision in Kingsthorpe. As you'll probably be aware, at the previous meeting held on the 24th of February, we discussed the library, and we agreed to have a further meeting with Shez, who's the head of the school, and see if there's anything we could do in relation to the £15.3 thousand charge for using the premises. The updates we've had so far is that as the property is currently leased by Northampton County Council, they are unwilling to reduce in any way the charge for the school to use the library. However, from the 1st of April, there will be new authority. And I believe Councillor Rumans, who's the County Councillor of Kingsthorpe North, would have an update about that.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to say, so following on from the meeting, I contacted Councillor Adam Brown, who's, we think, it's not guaranteed, but we think is going to be the relevant person for us to be contacting in relation to matters around the building, as opposed to matters to do with the actual provision of the library service in general. And he is very enthusiastic to kind of help us find some sort of solution, whatever that might be, around potentially a renegotiation, around finding funding, whatever it might be. Obviously, there are rules that are going to be carried forward from the County Council, which we're obviously looking to challenge at the moment, onto the West Northampton Council, but certainly that's something that's going to be there to be considered, and Adam's going to have hopefully sort of a look at it from a fresh point of view, because obviously it's been a long process. One of the key points, obviously, that we all raised on Saturday, which I did mention to Adam, was the fact that the building effectively has no real market value. So the market value that's currently been placed on it, I think I don't see any reason why we can't argue that it's basically nil, and therefore it could see us have a significant reduction or maybe even a reduction to naught, potentially in an ideal scenario, of that rent charge. Because as Councillor Beardsworth, Shez and Councillor Beardsworth were making points around on Saturday, from memory, the building is set so it can only be there for library provision. It can't be, say, turned into flats or turned into other sort of office space or anything like that. It has to be a library there. That's not to say that there can't be other bits in addition to the library in that space, but it has to be core a library. And there are only one set of people in town, as far as I'm finding, which is us lot, looking to actually continue a library there. So therefore, there isn't really a market other than us. So I think we hold the firm hand in the negotiation there. So we shall see what comes of that. You know, got to kind of play it by ear, really.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rimmons. In addition to that as well, I have discussed with Kate that we will be needing some office space, and there's a possibility that we'd be able to rent some room in the library on potentially permanently, but possibly also only a couple of days a week for the clerk to represent the parish council in a central location, which would obviously require us to sublet some room. And there's also the possibility of, I believe it was correspondence today, for the Kingsthorpe Manor charity to provide some money to that as well, which we're going to explore. And we're also going to look into whether it would be feasible for the parish council to take on the library, whether we'd be allowed to do that, whether it would be affordable, or anything else that we could possibly do. So Sally, obviously you've got your hand up.
Yes, I'm obeying the instructions. Yes, right. First and foremost, I have written a follow-up letter to the paper explaining the situation in more detail about the building being purely used as a library and nothing else. And the fact that our council tax has gone up considerably this time, and therefore they might have some extra money that they didn't realise they had, and they might reduce the rent. Also, I'm on the town Kingsthorpe Manor and Town Trust, have been for years as a trustee, and unfortunately these days, because the interest rates are so low, we don't get the return on our investments that we used to have, so that we don't have as much money to give away. But we try and help as many people as we can, but it's usually quite small loans. So I'm really hoping that I'm going to try and talk to Adam Brown myself, and so that it comes from just not Sam, it comes from Lib Dems as well, and I'll try and get Naz to do the same. So it's a cross-party, even though we're not political. I think it's important that they understand that it's so important to the people of Kingsthorpe to have a library, and this way it's a wonderful way of doing it, because it's helping the children, it's helping the residents. It's a win-win situation. If only we can just get them to either do away with the rent, because she's got to pay for a full-time librarian, which is going to cost probably over £30,000. So we really need to make sure that she's got enough money to survive, because there's the utilities to pay for, and we don't want it to fail once it gets going. We want it to carry on and improve. So I think there's still a fight in it. And I think we can still help as a parish, but let's see what the county will do first, and then we can step in with other things as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree. But I also think it's important for us to get an overview of just what it is that we can do and whether we can afford to do certain things before we progress with any negotiations or discussions. And then once more information comes to light, we can, of course, alter whatever our plans are accordingly.
Thank you.
Councillor Aziz. You're muted, Councillor.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit ignorant on this issue. How are we going to fund this library? Where this money going to come from?
So currently, there is a business plan for it being taken over. But of course, there's significant overheads in sort of like running the site. And the issue that we're discussing is essentially the £15,300 rent, which is being charged by the Northampton County Council. So we're trying to have that reduced to make the business plan more viable. So the money at the moment is all coming from the local school. They also run a few other things as well, and we're all positive for it, and we all think it'll be an incredibly important thing to hold on to. So if we have to step in as a parish council, then I'm sure that's something that we'd all be in favour of, although I don't think we're in favour of having to step in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to say anything? We also discussed getting like some history of like the costs of the site, which would require a freedom of information request. So we discussed that on Saturday when myself and various other people had
To find out
meeting.
how much money they got from the site that they for the
and how
yeah.
much they had to pay for initially taking on the lease. And that would require a freedom of information request. And Kate Houlihan, the clerk, said that we'd need to pass a motion to submit that from the parish council.
Can I also say, Chair, that it's not just what they paid initially for the building, it's what they sold the building that was the library to the Borough Council to become a housing office, because that would have offset some of the cost towards the library. And can I, at this moment in time, because Chair isn't here, the headmistress, head chief executive of Northgate School isn't here, I just wanted to explain to people that might be watching, she has turned that school around. It was a failing school, it was in a bad way, and she has turned it around. She's got a sweet shop, she's taking on different things, she's training her children to get into the outside world. And I just find it incredulous that we aren't actually, well, the county council isn't seeing this as a real opportunity for people with learning difficulties. So I think we need to push this message home.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm afraid you won't be able to speak again, Councillor Rumans, on this matter. Sorry, but I think we all know what your feelings are regarding the school and the library. But thank you. If you want to register to speak at a subsequent meeting, I'm sure that will be completely acceptable. Mr. Miller, Steve.
Hello. Can I just check? So you said a minute ago that if we wanted to try and dig into the detail of the county council's expenditure on the original, not on the original, on the new library back in around about 1990 and the sale of the asset to the borough council or the passing over.
Sorry, we've lost your sound.
Yeah. I've lost your sound, Steve. I don't know if you were going to ask about the freedom of information request, because you
yeah, I was just going to say, shouldn't that be sort of a matter of public record anyway, and we wouldn't necessarily need to do an FOI request to do that?
It should be. It's probably if you send an FOI in, it's probably perhaps might be if they've got a statutory duty then to respond to it within a certain time scale. That might be helpful to us, rather than it just kind of disappearing into some paperwork, especially with the transition. If it's recorded as an FOI, it just means that it's a statutory request. So that might be helpful.
And a time frame on it, which is good, and it adds extra pressure.
It's either 20 or 40 working days they have to respond, and if they don't respond, they've got to give a very good reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but I mean, my general experience with FOI requests is one of the things they can, one of the reasons they can use to not respond is to say that it would take up too much time to respond. And my worry is that they'll say, you know what, there's only a paper trail. We're doing this from, we're moving over from the county council to the unitary authority, so we've just not got the time to do it. And I mean, fair enough, then we challenge it, but it kind of goes into another 20-day cycle, 30-day cycle and stuff like that. And it just sort of occurred to me that, actually, if we wanted to look, for instance, at the meetings of the planning committee, from 1989 or 1985 or whenever it was, then there must be an archive somewhere that we could say, you know what, let's just go and have a look at those files. And it just occurs to me that might be easier than an FOI.
Through you, Chair, Steve, I through you, Chair. I think as well, an FOI, if they come back and say they haven't got time to do it, then you can actually say, well, you're not actually serving the people of Kingsthorpe correctly, and they want to know this. We're a parish council now. We're not an individual, and we need to make sure we get these things and we make sure they deliver. Or we go to the press and tell them that they haven't.
Yeah, fair comment.
Yeah. And I think we'd get all the documents, copies of all the documents related to the item, rather than just sort of like some
ones we can find. Yeah,
the ones we can find.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll propose that we submit a free information request. Would anyone like to second?
I'll second it, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So only the councillors present able to vote, but I'm sure we know how everyone will be voting. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So that's unanimous. Thank you. And we'll of course submit that as soon as we can. And I think it's 40 working days that they have to respond.
21, I think.
21.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be 3 to 4 weeks then.
Mm. Have we had a letter back, Chair, from the one we sent? Or an answer?
If you just bear-
On Earnshaw, no, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Plug my laptop in. I don't want to. There we go. Sorry, I'd forgotten to plug my laptop in.
That's all right.
Okay, so that is item number 5 done. So moving on to item number 6 then, which is the logo for Kingsthorpe Parish Council. Kate, you said you'd be presenting this.
Yes, I can do. So it was agreed at the last meeting that we would run a logo competition with children in local schools. One, so that the parish council had a logo moving forward, and also it will help us raise awareness of the council with families and anyone living in the area. So I'll just share on screen with you. Have you got that? A poster or flyer that we could use? So it's telling people, of course, that the parish council is there, asking them to design. We said it would be open to anyone that lives in Kingsthorpe or attends school in Kingsthorpe, because obviously I'm sure there'll be people at Kingsthorpe College that don't perhaps come out of the area. Open to children of all ages. There's no, and then the next slide, if you can see the second slide that says competition rules. We're just saying entries open on the 1st of April. So I was hoping to be able to send it out to schools so that they'll circulate it via email on their parent mail. And most schools do have email communications with all their pupils. The plan was to keep the competition open until the 10th of May, just to give people a good long time to think about entries. First round of judging, it says community councillors. I need to change that to parish councillors, apologies. All entries will be displayed on the parish council website, and 6 finalists will be selected, and we'll ask for a public vote on the 6 finalists, and we can do that through the website and any other promotional materials that we decide to do at the time. I'll stop sharing just because it's easier to, I can pop it back up if you want me to, but it's easier obviously to see any comments that people have.
Can I ask, Chair? I think that's great, Kate. I think that's a really good idea. I'm hoping we'll get some good art, from the upper schools as well. Something that's a bit sensational. So hopefully we can get some really good stuff. But the thing is as well, are we going to call ourselves Kingsthorpe Parish? Or are we going to call ourselves a community council? What are the views of the people on here? Because we're not just one community. I mean, a parish usually is quite small, but this parish is quite big and has lots of different communities in it. What do we think? Opening it to the floor.
Okay. Well, while I get my thoughts together. Mr. Miller, Steve.
Yeah, I don't know about the rules that specifically apply, but I thought I asked the Borough Council this when we were talking to them a couple of years ago, and I think they said that the order that was going through, or the paperwork that was going through, was basically to call us Kingsthorpe Parish Council. So you know, the sort of order that was forming the council was saying that we were a parish council. So I mean, I don't know if Leslie can advise as to whether, you know, there's any sort of flexibility in that, or whether we have to go by that order.
If I may, Chair, yes, you can change your name to a community council, a village council, which obviously not a village, or a town council if you're not a town. So you've got the option really of community council, but you will have to go through a process to do that. You can't just decide to change. And maybe it's something for the new councillors to consider when they come on board, because ultimately it will be their council going forward, and they may have very clear views as to what they would like to be known as.
Yeah.
At the very least, what we could do is, I haven't checked the Parish Council website in the last week, but at the very least we could put down, just under Kingsthorpe Parish Council, we could put down what areas it represents, representing Kingsthorpe.
Yeah.
That might be a good short-term solution, so everybody knows what the catchment area is. And you raised your hand, Kate. Was you coming back with the same as Leslie?
I was going to, just bring in Leslie to clarify exactly the process for changing the council name. The wards of the council are on the website, but I can make that more prominent so that it's really clear on the front page that it's serving all the communities it's serving.
Chair, I think Sam wanted to come back in. Is it possible? I think we can have a bit of leeway.
So in this case, yes, I will let him come in.
Sorry, I should have put myself down to speak on all the items. I'm just massively disorganised at the moment. It was just to say, my view, community council comes across, I mean, technically every council is a community council, whereas the parish is more definitive of something that's much more kind of hyper-localised. I appreciate, obviously, Sally makes a good point. It's a rather large parish council. But I do think the word parish, maybe I'm being too absorbed in my own world of understanding politics, but I would say a parish council is something that would be known as being a really hyper-local council to people, the kind of council that does the stuff very much on your very street kind of thing. Whereas a community council, I'm not sure that people would necessarily get what that is as much. But I might be stuck in my own world there. That's just a general point.
I do agree. A community council comes across as something that's not really official. It's sort of like we've come together as a community and we're a council, but we've got no official powers. I may be mistaken about that, but that's my perspective. So I think I agree with Councillor Rumans that we would keep the parish, whatever we could call it, or whatever the new members decide to call it. But I would say parish is a good description of what the role is.
I think the other council chair in Farcotton and Delabray, I think they're doing community, aren't they? So it might distinguish us differently over here. To stay parish.
Okay, Kate.
I was just going to say this is probably something that can be discussed with the new council, obviously, and everyone's views sought. For the time being, it will be parish council, which does make it slightly tricky with the logo competition, because if we're going to launch that now and then change the name of the council, that makes it difficult. Whereas running the logo competition now does give a good opportunity to raise awareness of the new council.
Okay. Well, let's stay as we are then.
Yeah.
And then it saves confusion. Okay.
I agree. So we as councillors for the shadow council, as it were, we'll leave it as it is. And if the new councillors want to change it, that is something to be determined post-election.
Yes.
Well,
I think it's good to discuss these things, our chair.
Yeah. Yeah. So regarding the competition, was everybody happy with it? Is there anything people would like to ask?
Yes, great. Voting, yes.
So Kate, you've got your hand up again, or you note.
No, I was just going to ask. Right, Sally's. You've said we're happy to proceed with that. I think the members have all voted that. So I'll get that out to schools as quickly as I can. Hopefully, so they get it before their Easter break, which should be able to get it out to everyone next week.
Okay, so just for the record, though, the logo competition, can you just raise your hand if you're happy with it, so that we've got an official vote? Brilliant. That's unanimous. Thank you very much, councillors. And Steve. Okay, so moving on then to item number 7, which is the police information. Now, I spoke with Kate yesterday and the police still hadn't come back to us with a report. So we'll be deferring that item, I guess, again. Unless, Mr. Miller, have you heard anything?
No. So Kate sent me a mail yesterday about a meeting or a presentation, I think, that the Police and Crime Commissioner is doing to councils next week. So I can go to that meeting and I can, I guess, report back, although I'll report back to Kate and Kate can distribute as per, I guess, but no, I've not heard anything else.
Okay, thank you. And just for the record, Mr. Miller is the Council Community Police Liaison Representative. I forget exactly what the title is, I'm sorry, but he is the person liaising with the police on our behalf. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
At one time, Chair, when we used to have meetings with the police, they used to tell us the burglary rate and if any cars were being broken into certain areas. And that's the sort of local knowledge we need so that we can put out and warn people to not leave things in their car, to attract burglars, to make sure that they lock their front doors at night when they go to bed. All those sort of, it's like neighbourhood watch ideas if we haven't got one, you know. And if the police would supply us with that information online.
Yeah, I mean, I think the police representative who was at the last meeting, we did ask for that sort of information, didn't we? And I think he said that he'd be happy to provide that going forward. So it's yeah, I think he also said, didn't he, that the sort of way it was actually, the way they were going to be liaising with the councils was a bit up in the air at the minute because of the unitary reorganisation as well. So that might take a little while to settle down. So I'll see what this presentation is next week. And like I say, I'll feed back to Kate and then Kate can distribute.
Okay, thank you. Kate, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I was just going to say as well, I have signed up for neighbourhood alerts that cover the area. Anyone can sign up for those. But now that as I start receiving them, I can put them in the news section on the website if there's something significant about, you know, there's a spate of car burglaries or just reminding people of those kinds of safety message the Councillor Beardworth mentioned. So I'll start adding them to the website.
Okay, thank you very much.
Actually, that's a good point. I attended a neighbourhood watch meeting a couple of weeks ago and the police presented at that, and it might be that when I just said a couple of minutes ago that the police had said this at our last meeting, I might have been thinking of that neighbourhood watch meeting. But yeah, one of the sort of recommendations from that was to sign up to the neighbourhood alert scheme. There's lots of neighbourhood watch schemes at various places across Kingsthorpe, and if you sign up there, then it basically, you can tailor the alerts to send the alerts that you're interested in. So absolutely, we should recommend people do that.
Okay. Definitely. Would anyone else like to say anything on this item before we move on? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller, and thank you very much, Kate. So moving on to item number 8, which is planning matters. There are 5 items here. As I've stated a declaration of interest, I will be abstaining from any vote, but I believe since there are 3 councillors, we are quora and the other members will be able to make comments.
Yeah, you're just abstaining from the vote, aren't you, Chair? So yeah.
But we don't have to vote on anything, we can just make comments.
So the first one is for 181 Sherwood Avenue, Northampton. And I can give you the view on that one. I don't know if members have had a chance to look at these and have any comments to make. So that's the you want me to put up the current?
Yes, please.
Okay. If I go back to, I could just add the thing, sorry. Anyone have any comments on that one?
No. It's only a porch, isn't it, really?
Yeah, single story front extension, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it was a normal porch, because they've got to be certain dimensions, you wouldn't need planning permission. Because this one is bigger than that, that's the reason they do.
Yeah.
The second, so are you happy to say that there's no comments on the first? Yeah.
Yeah.
The second of the planning applications is a 2-story side and rear extension. It's 17 Barron's Way. And if I give you
That's quite a big extension, isn't it?
it's significant, isn't it?
Mm.
Put at the
I mean, does it blend in with street line? This is the thing, isn't it? With is there any comments with this one at all?
that have been made already.
Mm.
There aren't any listed at the moment.
No, it's okay.
And you can just make a comment.
Well, as I say, does it fit in with street scene? I think is what my thing, because that is what they try and keep the nature of the street the same. And as long as the planners are happy with that, then that's the only comment I would make.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, if Councillor Aziz is happy with that, then I'll be abstaining, obviously.
Yeah, happy, yeah.
I've just lost the next one, so I'll come back to that in a moment if I can. So would you mind jumping to application 0136, which is a single story side extension, 12 Farm Close.
Okay, yeah.
Whereabouts is this? I can't remember the name. It doesn't. Oh, is it one of the new buildings?
I'm afraid I don't have, other than the block plan, I haven't got any other.
It's in the development where Kingsthorpe Middle School was, I think, Sally.
Oh, down there. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So you can see on the block plan the extent of the extension.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, I take that back. It's so the little bit that runs parallel to the Welford Road. So just to the sort of adjacent to the allotments, it is kind of in there. So you've got the entrance from the Welford Road. If you go straight on, you get to where Kingsthorpe Middle School was, and then you've got those two little bits to the left and to the right, and Farm Close is a sort of little cul-de-sac off of one of those.
But would they be in our parish? They look like to be in North. Then.
I think they are.
Kingsthorpe North.
They're between. Well, we are Kingsthorpe North, aren't we?
Yeah.
They recorded on the Borough Council system as falling within Kingsthorpe.
Yeah, Yeah,
It's a bit tucked away, isn't it?
it is a bit, but yeah.
I can't see any problems unless the neighbours object, really. I think it's down to people who live in the vicinity.
What is it? It's single story side extension.
Mm,
And you can see the extent of it there on the block plan.
yeah,
That little yellow blob. It's going up to the fence line, but it's not backing right up to anybody. Yeah.
no.
Okay.
Is it for disabled access, do you think, that one? Because it's ground floor, it's got a bedroom and the sitting room and access to the bathroom. I just wondered if it was a disability one. Can you see what I mean? The extension part's got a bedroom, a sitting room, and looks like a sort of self-contained unit, but with access to the bathroom. Sorry to be, I just wondered if it was for somebody who was with disabilities.
They haven't given any details
Okay.
on the application form, which sometimes people would put on the application form. They haven't,
Yeah.
which doesn't mean either way, to be fair.
No.
So
Okay, no problem then. Looks like it's either a teenager's bedroom or somebody, an annex for grandma. Yeah.
and then the next one, if I can go in that order, is application number 0116, which is a first floor side extension and ground floor extension to rear of garage 2 Ringwood Close.
Okay. First one.
That is the existing elevations there. Well, you
Yeah.
can see the existing elevations. I'll just pull that back. And then you can see that it is quite extensive. The
That's
proposed extension.
bit of overdevelopment, I would have thought. I mean, it's almost doubling the size of the property, isn't it? By the looks of it, almost.
It's a substantial increase, isn't it, of around 50% on the upper floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been a recent similar size extension on 22 Leyland Drive, which is literally just around the corner from it. And that obviously got planning permission, so that's something to bear in mind.
Yeah, it just seems so large, and what you wonder how much left of the garden there is. Because you're supposed to not cover more than 50% of your garden, are you? If I remember rightly.
What they haven't got.
I've never been on
is,
planning, so I have no idea the planning rules as such to the end depth. But I know about overdevelopment and lack of light to neighbours and all the other bits that come into these things. Okay.
You could make that as a comment, because it's just a comment as opposed
yeah.
to objecting to it.
Yeah, so just say, is this overdevelopment?
Is everybody happy with that?
No, I mean it'll go to planning and they'll do what they see fit. So
We can still make a comment. So if Councillor Aziz is happy with that comment, then I'll abstain.
okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with the comment. Thank you.
And that was the last one, the one that I missed a moment ago, which is a 2-storey side extension and single-storey rear extension at 301 Eastern Avenue North.
Right. Well, that looks almost like doubling again, doesn't it?
Quite substantial. I don't see it now. If you can see,
Is it the
Site
pink?
plan.
The pink is what's the extension, is it?
but yes, I think so. That
Yeah, pink bit is
Yeah.
extension. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
How close is that to the neighbour's property? Because I noticed there's a garage there as well, isn't there?
Mm. It looks like they're taking one of the garages out and extending it and just leaving one garage. Yeah.
Can you see the location plan on your screen?
Yes, just about. Yeah.
I can increase that a bit. And if that helps at all.
Yeah. Yeah. There seems a distance between them and the neighbours anyway, doesn't it? No, I think probably no objection to that one as far as I'm concerned. I think it's, although it's quite big, it doesn't look like it's going to impact on the neighbourhood that much.
So that would be no comment then.
Yeah.
You, Councillor Is.
Yeah, I'm happy with this.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'll abstain, obviously.
Okay. And that is all of the planning applications.
Oh, that's quite well done, Gabe.
Yep. Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Sally and Aziz. So with that, we'll be moving on to item number 9, which is the breastfeeding policy. Now, you should all have had the copy of this, and I'll run you through the reasoning behind this policy. So I'm very keen for everybody who wants to be a parish councillor to not feel that they can't, from financial considerations such as childcare or caring for other dependents. As a parish council, we can offer food and travel allowance for members, which I can't see would be claimed all that much. We cannot, however, offer a dependence allowance. It would have to be a large council like the upcoming unitary authority. And the third option for that would, for an allowance, would be a councillor's allowance, which would be paid to all members, which is what we currently receive at the Borough Council and the County Council, and I'm not in favour of that.
No.
Now, given that we can't offer a dependence allowance for incoming councillors, I asked the clerk, Kate Houlihan, to draft a breastfeeding policy, which is a statement of intent rather than any policy, because currently nursing mothers are allowed to feed their children wherever they want, and if you get offended by it, then that is completely your issue. But I do know, because I've got some friends who are nursing and they've faced discrimination and hostility from members of the public whenever they've done that. So my feeling on this policy is that we adopt it, and if anybody wants to come to a meeting or is a councillor in a meeting and they have to feed their child, then we fully support that. And if anyone else has a problem with that, they would be the person we'd ask to leave if it became necessary. And that is my thinking behind the policy. And obviously this is only a first piece. We can adopt other policies to sort of like reinforce this and supplement this. This isn't meant to be the be all and end all. It's just meant to be a statement of our intent.
I will obviously second that. I think it's very good. I think it's the most natural thing in the world to want to feed your child. And if somebody comes to a meeting and has to feed a child, I would much prefer to feed it than let it cry. So I'm totally behind you in that. And I think, you know, people are embarrassed or anything else, they just don't have to look.
Yep, exactly. It is very natural. Humans have been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. So,
yeah.
And we seem to, Councillor Aziz seems to have.
I was just going to raise that chair. I'm assuming perhaps he can hear us. He's just perhaps stepped away. But if he's not there, the meeting isn't actually quorate. So I don't know if he.
Well, we'll wait for him to come back since he is still online.
I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that. Chair, while we're waiting for Aziz, I know.
Is anybody up to? Oh, here's Aziz again. Yeah. Councillor Aziz, would you like to make any comments on this policy?
No. I'm very happy with that. and breastfeeding is very important. As we grown up can eat something in the meeting, why a child cannot, and that's very good. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make any comments? In that case, I'll propose we adopt this policy. Councillor Bearsworth has said she'd second it. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Then moving on to item 10, to receive an update on the setup of Kingsthorpe Parish Council. And we should have all received this information. This is your report, I believe, Kate.
Yeah, so you've got a report in your packs running through the setup process. Just to update you on a couple of things. I have had, I think since our last meeting, a meeting with Edwina Crowley, who's the property asset manager at NBC. And she's going to be, she hasn't had an opportunity to yet, but she's going to be sending me leases for relevant properties within Kingsthorpe Parish, the community centres, which may be in the longer term, the parish look to take over, to have an asset transfer of those buildings. And then with regards to the bank account, I have submitted the application to Unity Trust. So thank you to Councillors Kilby, Shaw and Bearsworth for organising all the paperwork on that. With regards to the insurance, I know some of you probably haven't had the opportunity to see. I did send an update round this evening with regards to the council insurance. We do need to have, oh sorry, wrong report. We do need to put insurance in place for the next financial year. And I'm proposing that the council goes with insurance from BHIB. The council were insured with them this year. And they very thoughtfully did that free of charge for the first year. And they have given us the most competitive quote for year 2 of the quotes that I've received. And it would be £434 for insurance. And that would cover public liability, volunteers liability. If we do take over, have property or assets, there is a small allowance within that, within the insurance policy. If there's larger items that the council take over, then we would need to separately look at additional insurance as the year moves forward. But it's a good sound policy to cover all aspects of council work. So I'd propose that was adopted with BHIB being the most competitive. And the other item on the follow-up report that I shared with you earlier this evening was with regard to a phone line. Obviously the council doesn't currently have a phone line of any kind, and I suggest that you don't decide on any permanent solution until the council's elected and you've actually had thoughts about what type of office space and how that's going to work moving forward, so you can actually decide what kind of phone system you want. But I thought that perhaps in the short term we could just use a pay-as-you-go mobile, just so that the council had a phone number. At the moment the telephone number on the website goes through to NCALP, who very kindly said that you know, if we do have calls, they would field them for us. But I just thought it might be better for the council if there was a number that when people dial it, I pick up the phone and it's somebody answering it as Kingsthorpe Parish Council.
Yeah.
So it's just a short-term solution. I've got an old phone. I would just buy a pay-as-you-go SIM, put it in, put the number on the website, and there'll be a small charge for any call charges. But you know, obviously, it will just be.
I think that's a very sensible idea, Kate, and people at least have a contact point, and we, you know, and they won't be using anything of yours, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we did discuss this, the insurance, which is required. I don't think we can operate if we don't have insurance, and having a point of contact, a phone number that anybody can use, I think is also required as well. Councillor Aziz.
Yes, you know, the insurance quotation, does it include the legal cover?
Yes, it does. It's a comprehensive policy. It's a fairly standard policy for parish councils, and it includes legal cover, what they call fidelity guarantee, which is basically employee dishonesty. So all the things that you'd expect to see in the policy are covered. I can circulate the policy schedule to members for you to have a look at.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I believe there will be 2 votes required for this. The first with which is to note the report, the second of which would be to approve the renewal of the insurance and also paying for a mobile phone SIM card.
We have got money for Kate to access for the SIM card.
We would need to, I will purchase it and put an expenses claim in at a future date, which will be verified by the chair and whatever systems we put in place. So it's not a problem.
As long as you can be reimbursed properly, yes.
Yeah, but it's within the budget, so that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, has anyone else got any comments they'd like to raise? Okay, so in that case, we'll move on to the first vote, which is...
We have to vote through.
Yeah, we have to vote to note the report, and then we have to vote to approve the renewal and the phone as well. So to note the report, all those in favour? That's unanimous. And then to approve the renewal of the insurance and the purchase of a SIM card, all those in favour? That's unanimous again. Thank you very much. All right. So now we move on to item 11, which is the community planning and future development of a neighbourhood plan. So you will have received the report, which is about having a community plan and then later on a neighbourhood plan. Now I've discussed it. You can potentially do a community plan and a neighbourhood plan concurrently, but the recommendation is that you do a community plan first, and then that feeds into a neighbourhood plan. Now, the difference between a community plan and a neighbourhood plan is a community plan is sort of like just consulting with the community to determine what their priorities are, what they want to see in the community, and see what we can do as a parish council. And a neighbourhood plan is a legal planning document which sort of like has weight at planning committees. A community plan will take 6 to 9 months. And a neighbourhood plan will take 18 months to 2 years to be completed. There will be a cost for each of them. It does vary how much it would be, but I think a community plan straight off the bat, once a new council is elected, to just understand what all the priorities are for the parish council is a brilliant idea. And the proposal would be that at the AGM, which will be held after the elections, a working group is set up to start the community plan, and we'd co-opt people such as members from WASPRA or other community groups to participate and develop the community plan. Councillor Beardsley, Sally.
So, yes, thank you, Chair. A good idea, but can I also say that Queen's Park has already done, I believe, and I can't remember which one it is, and I think it was the bigger one, the neighbourhood plan, already. And rather than reinvent the wheel, if we could contact them to find out what they've done so we can amalgamate it, it may save some time in Queen's Park, and then we can concentrate on the rest of the wards as well. If there's information there that we can use, then it's a shame for it to go to waste because it's taken them a long time to collate it.
Okay, I agree. I'm not certain what the legal process would be, but we can certainly look at that. Would you be okay to look into that for us, Kate?
Yeah, I don't know the status of a neighbourhood plan for Queen's Park, but I will find out.
I will find out who's on the committee and give you a phone number. Is that all right? Well, it just saves time. It's a shame for them to do all the work and then it go to waste.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody got anything they'd like to say regarding this?
I know it's quite expensive, Chair, and I know you have to have a lot of people involved. It's a lot of people you've got to get on to actually agree to it. And I'm sure we will get there. But I think there's a lot to do. And if we start it maybe 6 months in from the start of the parish, so we can make sure we can set the parish up properly and get people involved. I think this is the main crux of the matter with the parish, is getting the community involved. And then we'll go and do it. I think it might be a bit much to start it straight away. We'll have to see what the new councillors want, but I think it's a big job and a lot of people to have to be involved.
Yeah, I do agree. It will be a big job, which is why the recommendation is that at the AGM, this is put to the new council, whether they want to go ahead with it straight away, or whether they can obviously decide at that time whether they want to defer it for a period of time. But I think that it should be a priority, because at the moment, the parish council, we only have the allotments, which hasn't been completely confirmed, and possibly some community centres, which
we don't want the community centres. The unitary's got the money for the community centres. We don't want to take them on. They're going to be expensive insurance-wise and a lot of other things. So we have to have the money that goes with them.
Yeah, but that is something which is being discussed about regarding asset transfer. So currently the parish council, we don't actually have any areas of responsibility or anything to do. So I think this would be a very good opportunity to engage with the community, get them involved and find out what their priorities are. And as I said, if this is put to the new councillors at the AGM, they can then decide at that time whether they want to do it immediately or whether they want to defer it. And I know Councillor Rumans has raised.
Can we forgive him this time? And I would advise Councillor Rumans to indicate on every item, and then you can say you don't want to speak on it. That's what I do. Okay.
Right, so Councillor Rumans, you'd like to come back on this? Go ahead.
Yes, sorry again for not asking to speak and everything. Yeah, just to say, I think this is such the community plan, at least initially, before the neighbourhood plan, is a massive opportunity for us to properly engage with everyone in Kingsthorpe in a way that probably has never been really done before, I would think. Obviously all of us in the political sphere, we go around and we knock on doors, as much as we can, and we listen and talk to people all the time, but we're only ever going to be talking to a certain kind of percentage of people. And we're doing it from, like it or not, an overtly political stance in some sense or another. Whether we intend to or not, people will take it as a political conversation, and therefore we might not always get the fullest and best information from everybody, the most crude information maybe that we need to be hearing from people about all the issues that they have for the area, and using this to create probably what would be a great big enormous list of things, ranging from very large scale things to saying, might be we want Kingsthorpe front to look completely different and we want to tart the place up, or it might be things on a much smaller scale going down to individual things and individual closes and streets and everything. But the key bit is, I think, raising awareness with this to the absolute fullest extent possible, even if it costs a few quid to do it. I think it would be so valuable to then get absolutely everything on the table, so we have a really clear list to start working from. And not only that, it's not only going to be just the parish that then has to deal with that. Anyone that's then a unitary councillor and the unitary council in general can be parts of that list to say, look, these are things that we've been picking up from this exercise that actually, well, this relates to highways, this relates to planning, this relates to this relates to that. I think it'd be a fantastic exercise. Hopefully a way maybe locally that we can start to build a kind of new level of trust with the community as well around local government. It's a massive opportunity. So let's absolutely make the most of it that we can.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And regarding the cost, if my memory serves, Kate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you've had these before and the cost was about £3,000 for a community plan. Sorry, you're muted.
Yes, previously it cost us around £3,000 to publicise it properly, print some questionnaires, etc. Have some office support to work on the responses and so on. So it depends on exactly the extent of the questionnaire, but yeah, that sort of ballpark figure.
Yeah. Okay, Sally.
I'm really hopeful that when the parish council is set up, that we do a, say, biannual newsletter that goes out to the whole ward. and with a section on it to say, you know, what are your priorities in your town and how to engage with us as councillors. And I think something like that wouldn't be too costly. It would probably cost about £5,000 to get it delivered and probably about £300 to get it printed. But I think it would be very good to introduce the parish and actually get people engaged in knowing that they've got a local council that they can go and see too. And I think that's a really good way of communicating. And then we can ask them, we can collate that information as well to start the community business we're trying to look at. I think it is important to communicate with the general public.
Yeah, I completely agree with the communication. We won't be able to make any determination on that idea at this meeting because it's not.
No, but that's what I'm hoping for.
I think it is something definitely to consider going forward, and it will be something for obviously for the new members to consider, because we won't have any opportunity really to have a meeting about it before the elections have happened. But I'll certainly bring it up with Kate when we speak about the agenda for the AGM and so forth. But thank you. So would anyone else like to speak about the community plan? We're missing Councillor Aziz.
I think he's there. He has. I think he's perhaps just not in shot, but we're.
Yes, we are going to vote on this, whether on the recommendation.
Shall we do the next item and come back to this one when he comes back to join us? Is there anything else?
No, yeah, so
would we be able to move on to it without voting on it, or would you have to be
present?
present?
We can come back to that in a moment.
Oh, I can see him. Councillor Aziz, are you there? Are you able to hear us?
I know exactly where that camera is, and he's ferrying between the kitchen and the front desk where someone's picking up paper. Guarantee what's going on there. No, unequivocally.
No good.
Technically not quorate at the moment.
No, so we can't move on.
Oh.
I'll ring his phone. We're back. Can you hear it?
If you've got him on speed dial, that might be a good idea.
I think he's on speed dial for the restaurant or takeaways. What's the next item on the agenda? I know we can't, but just so we can maybe.
It's the annual parish meeting.
Sorry, no, the next item is the climate change.
Oh, apologies, yes.
Yeah.
Now, I know that all the councillors saw the policy that was adopted or noted by the Borough Council at the last full council meeting. And so it's, oh, here we are. Are you back with us, Councillor Aziz?
Hello?
Hello, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back with you.
Okay. So in that case, we'll go back to item 11. We just got to vote on whether on the recommendations for the report, which is resolve that work should begin on development of a community plan, and the outcomes would be fed into a neighbourhood plan. So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So as I was saying, moving on to item 12, which is adopt the climate policy, or the policy statement below. This council notes the previous climate emergency declarations by both Northampton Borough Council and Northamptonshire County Council. As a new council, it is vital that we put the climate emergency at the forefront of any decisions we take, and this council therefore resolves to declare a climate emergency and set 2030 as the date to be carbon neutral, and ask that the council draws up a plan to be reviewed by the end of the year. And that's the statement. And we've all read the report done by the Borough Council.
Yes.
And I think that'd be a very useful document for us to develop a plan. And obviously the challenges will change going forward as we adopt more areas of responsibility. But currently, I think we're definitely on target to meet those that target. And also just to reiterate that we will be going paperless, so that at any future meetings, you'll have to email the clerk to request copies of your documents. Otherwise, it'll just be online completely. Mr. Miller, Steve.
Oh, I think, as you've said, it's at the minute, because the responsibilities of the parish council are not huge. It's difficult to see, you know, what that actually means. It's a bit vague, isn't it? But I think as a statement of intent, absolutely, it's one that I'd support. I think, you know, let's get a report and see what the actual parish council can do to influence this and to be a change maker or a change influencer in this regard. So yeah, it's got my support.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I just would like to add, I think it's the way to go. We've got to do something about climate change. It's not something we can ignore and forget about. I think it's not happening. We know it's happening, and we know it should be foremost in all our minds to do something. And there will be decisions that will come to us as a parish council that will have effect on climate change, and then we can actually make a difference to those and make a change for the right reasons. So I totally support this.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Councillor Rumans, I will allow you to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say, obviously, fully support it. I would just be really keen to see maybe something more for a future meeting to be discussed, but Sally's kind of alluded it to there on how tangibly we can try and make an impact in Kingsthorpe on this. And I would think that the parish building up a kind of bank of local knowledge and information about, you know, particular pinch points around pollution, for example, which I know Steve has done a lot of work on, and other people have done a lot of work on, the borough's done some work on, that county as well. And kind of picking up on these key bits and really, you know, then using the parish as an engine to put pressure onto the unitary and potentially onto government as well, to say, you know, these are key pinch points, these are key areas where if we do some work on it, we can actually massively improve a hyper-localised element of, you know, pollution, climate change, environmental damage, etc., and fix it. I think that'd be, you know, really, really great. Just want to make sure we don't talk about it lots and not get anything done. That's just my key thing on everything, as always.
Yeah, just coming back, Kate. Oh, Councillor Lash just, Councillor Parrick just texted me.
He's just joined the meeting. Yeah.
Councillor Parrick. Before we proceed any further, do you have any declarations of interest? No. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I agree with what everything's been said, and the challenges facing the parish council will change over time as we adopt new things, and we'll have until the end of the year to come up with a plan, and that will be reviewed by the whole of the council, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of scrutiny by community groups as well. So I propose we adopt this policy statement.
Great. I'll second it.
Second it. Okay, thank you, Sally. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask you members to confirm that the principle will be that papers are received online only, but members can request hard copies, and that's what we will do moving forward.
Okay, I'm happy to propose that.
Yeah, I quite like hard copies, Kate, because I like to read them before the meeting, and I find it difficult reading online because of eyesight problems. Okay, but other than that, fine.
Okay, so we still need to vote on that. So I'll propose that we adopt that policy, the paperless policy, that you have to request physical copies. So do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it. I'll second it. But
Councillor Aziz just beat you to it. So all those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so then we'll move on to item 13, which is the annual parish meeting to to consider a report. Kate, you're presenting this for me. Thank you.
I will do. So you've all got the report in your pack, and I've explained that every parish or town council must have 2 annual meetings. It's confusing. One is the annual meeting of the parish council, and that's the meeting where the chairman is elected and statutory business is carried out. The other isn't actually a parish council meeting, but is a meeting of the electors of the parish, and that is called by the parish council chairman. And that meeting does have to take place each year between the 1st of March and 1st of June. COVID restrictions and so on made it slightly different for the previous year, but this year we're expected to have to hold the meeting. At the moment, as I said at the previous meeting, the regulations allowing us to have meetings virtually end on the 6th of May. And thereafter we have to go back to having meetings in person. So at this point, that's the plan that we are working to, that meetings would be in person after that date. So we need to set a date for the annual parish meeting and a format for it, which I've suggested, having spoken to the chairman, that perhaps we go for a date as late as possible, so that it's after the election and Saturday the 29th of May, because that might be a good day to involve more members of the community, and that perhaps we have some form of community fair, giving local groups, charities, schools, all aspects of the community an opportunity to be involved and have some kind of community fair so that they can showcase what they do, and the exact form that might take. And we may have to decide a little bit nearer the time in consultation with the chair, because obviously COVID restrictions may mean that we have to make slightly different arrangements and what we need to do at that time, depending on exactly how the roadmap works out. Do you have any questions?
Where do you think you're going to hold this, Chair? Where do you think, where are we proposing holding? If you're going to have a fair at the same time, you're going to have quite a big venue.
We're not sure at this point where we'd be holding it. Obviously, given the restrictions that are in place currently, and sort of like the safeguards we might have to take, this might not actually be possible, because we'll still have to maintain a social distance.
Yeah.
And if there's going to be 15 councillors elected, we'll have to maintain a social distance between the councillors who are present at both the AGM and the parish meeting. We'll also have to maintain a social distance between ourselves and members of the public, the electors who attend. We'd also have to maintain a social distance between them and any stalls or any community groups that come up. So one thing we possibly discuss, it would be obviously weather dependent, is to have some form of event outside of a community hall, or perhaps even have the entire event outside. And we could not have like community representatives turn up, but just like have information that they provided to us that members of the community can sort of like collect, sort of like leaflets or whatever. But as Kate has already said, it's very difficult for us to sort of like make any firm determinations of the exact format at this time. But obviously we'll look at the guidelines carefully and like the safeguarding issues carefully in advance of the meeting, and it may be that it has to be a smaller thing than we intend, or it could be a larger thing than we intend. It's all just.
So it's a daytime meeting. What time are you thinking of having it?
Kate, you'd be able to tell us what time it has to be held.
It can be held at any time that the council chooses. And when we'd spoken, we thought perhaps a weekend would give people more opportunity to attend. So it could be the afternoon. That's completely open.
Okay.
Yeah, so we could make an all-day thing of it. The length of the meeting would obviously be dependent on how many electors attend and what issues are brought up and so forth. And I believe there is information up on the Parish Council website, is there? Or has that not been put up yet regarding what a parish meeting is?
No, there isn't. I will add something to the website on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Miller, Steve.
Yeah, you're muted, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I was looking for the button. Yeah, my concern about this is that the roadmap that the government has currently put in basically says that, you know, sorry, dog. If they follow the timelines they've got at the minute, that May the 17th, they will basically open it up and you're allowed to have, you know, up to 30 people gathering in an outdoor space. It just seems unlikely to me that, you know, if we're talking about having a meeting on the 29th, if we can plan for a meeting that is going to have less than 30 people, it just doesn't feel like it's going to be much of a meeting. And obviously the step 4 is, you know, no earlier than I think the 12th of June. So I don't, you know, unless you're specifically planning to have a meeting that's going to, or an event that's going to have less than 30 people, I don't really see how we can do it.
I think the issue there is that we have to have one. It's a legal requirement. So
I get that. So there's a conflict, isn't there, between there's a legal requirement that says we have to have a meeting. The COVID restrictions say we can't have an outdoor event with more than 30 people, and the government hasn't changed the, you know, the stuff that says we can hold meetings remotely expires on May the 6th or something like that. So there's a sort of conflict between all 3 of those positions. But yeah, like I say, I just don't see how we can do it.
If you're going to have 2 meetings a year, why don't we have this meeting as, you know, the parish council to discuss things we want, and then later in the year, maybe in September when things might be freer, have the event then. When I know it'd be beneficial to have it earlier, but we don't want to cause anybody any harm or risk or stop people coming because they're frightened.
I'll let Kate jump in. I think she's going to say what I was about to say, but go ahead, Kate.
Well, we do have a legal requirement to have a parish meeting by the 1st of June. So we have to do something. I completely understand that the point of perhaps making that a very small event and doing something larger later in the year, and planning it around that, because there's no reason why you can't do something else later in the year. Unless the regulations change, we do have a statutory requirement to hold this meeting. But as the chair has said, in terms of the community fair, it doesn't have to be huge groups of people. It could be information boards and so on. There could be an opportunity for people to pass through in small groups and look at the information boards and go and a smaller meeting. It does very much depend on the restrictions that we have.
Yeah.
I think perhaps if for now, if people were happy to note the proposed date, and we'll continue to work on it based on whatever restrictions and guidelines are in place. And if anything changes with regards to holding meetings virtually, because that would give more groups the opportunity to speak without worrying about numbers and so on. So
yeah, I will just say I do have the same reservations as other members about like the COVID restrictions and social distancing and so forth. But as we do have to have this meeting, there's currently no way out of it. And I don't mean that as like I don't want to have the meeting. It's just like we have to have it. We can't defer it to when it might be a more appropriate and safer time to do it. But as Councillor Bearsworth Sally has said, we could have a small parish meeting on the 29th of May, which is the proposed date, and then have a larger one. So I believe we would be able to do that. Is that right, Kate?
Yes, we can do. Yeah, you're not restricted to only having one parish meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so we could set a date for August as well. So we have a proper parish meeting. That would be sufficiently long after the restrictions have been lifted as well. Hopefully.
I think we just got to see what the guidelines are going to say there.
Sorry, what was that, Councillor Parrick?
I was just going to say that we just have to wait and see what guidelines adjust, and then obviously, just go along with the guidelines on that. We can't do nothing else apart from that, really.
Okay, I agree. So in that case, the recommendation is just to note the report, and we'll just note the proposed date. And I guess I will, because we are going to have possibility of a scheduled meeting later on, which will be in any other information at the end of the meeting. But I suppose we could keep everybody updated by email and also on the Parish Council website. Is everyone happy with that?
Yes, fine.
Everyone in favour of that as proposed?
Right.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then we move on to item 14, which is the financial risk assessment and annual review of insurance, which is your report again, Kate.
Yeah, so you should all have a copy of the financial and management risk register in your packs that you have. It goes through everything that the council does and identifies the risk so that you can feed that into insurance, obviously. As you can see, I've tried to cover everything that could, trying to cover every eventuality and everything that could possibly go wrong. They are all low risk at this stage because, as we previously said, at the moment the council isn't delivering services and so on. Other than I've put the allotments as medium risk, just because we're still not 100% clear on any liabilities that the council has in the coming financial year with regard to the allotments. So I've just recorded that as a medium risk, and I've also flagged that with the insurance company just to make them aware that there are those land transfers when I talk to them about the renewals. So it's a question of if anybody has any questions on it, please.
I think you covered most of the points, Kate, very well. So I think I'm happy with this until the new council takes over.
Okay. So if we have a vote, is everyone happy with the report as presented? All those in favour?
Do we have a second and a proposer? I'll propose it.
Okay, and I'll second it then.
Okay.
I think that was unanimous.
Yeah.
And that comes to the end of the agenda, which moves on to any other information. So as you know, from April, we'll be in an election period, which means we won't be able to do anything political in council meetings, and also, or while we will be able to have any meetings, the agenda will be very restricted. But when I spoke with Kate yesterday, there are some planning applications coming through, which we will need to consider before the end of April. So therefore, the next meeting I'm proposing will be held on the 14th of April, and the only items on the agenda currently are planning applications, and we'll be considering them.
We are meeting on the 26th, though, aren't we, Chair?
26th.
That's the library. That's about.
No, 27th. Sorry, 27th, about the library.
Just to talk to chairs about the library, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll be talking. Yeah, sorry, completely different thing. Yes, we will be.
Sorry. It's
referring to
extraordinary meeting. Yes. Yeah.
So that's
okay.
14th of April, Chair. Yeah.
Kate's got her hand raised.
I was just going to say that the library meeting is an informal meeting that we'll be having with Northgate School, just to keep the library thing moving, keep the library item moving forward. But the chair is proposing that the next meeting of the council is on the 14th of April. And the only items on the agenda we're saying would be planning applications, but perhaps also that's an opportunity to update on what might be happening with the annual parish meeting as well.
Time-wise, do we have an indication of time?
We could say 6 o'clock again.
Yeah, I'll put 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, Councillor Ruman, since this is any other information, you can go ahead and speak. I'm guessing it's be about the library.
It's just to say the informal one that we're having on the 27th. I assume there's no issue for us extending the invite out. For example, we've got Rachel on the meeting that's joined us. That's been one of the biggest campaigners for keeping the library open. I just want to make sure everyone that wants to have an input into that process and hear about the detail of it can be invited. But I assume that's not an issue.
I thought everybody was invited to that.
Everyone.
Yeah, I just wanted to double. I just wasn't sure. I just wanted to double check.
We previously invited all councillors and co-opted members, but it is just a working group that's bringing any decisions back to the council. So yeah, that anyone with an interest is very welcome to be part of that meeting. And I do have the details that you pass on to me, Councillor Ruman. So yes, I can send those over. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Rumans. And then the next meeting after the council meeting on the 14th of April will be the 14th of May, which will be the annual general meeting. And that is sufficiently long after the elections on the 6th that the result will have been declared. If, however, the results are not declared by the Monday, because we have to have 3 cleared days, then that date will, of course, be deferred. But it should be sufficient time, because I don't think they're going to take 5 days to count the results and declare them council elections. So that will be the AGM, and at that meeting it will be all the new councillors, of whom hopefully there will be 15, and the business at the agenda will be to vote on the new chair, deputy chair, and various other positions, such as setting up a voting group for the school logo competition and so forth. And then after that, the next meeting will be the 29th of May, which will be the parish meeting, as we've already discussed.
Lovely. Super.
29th of May, Saturday.
That will be a Saturday. That's so that members of the public who might be working during the week will have the opportunity to come, and because it's all the electors coming to do the parish meeting. And Kate has already said that she'll put information about parish meetings up on the parish council website.
Lovely.
There's no other business from me, so I'd just like to thank you all for attending. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Sam Rumans, for all your contributions, and thanks for members of the public for joining the meeting. And we will see you all hopefully on the 14th of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Good night.